Well, good morning everybody. I'm delighted to be with my friend Pamela this morning, and we're in deepest, darkest Devon and we're just down the road from Shobrooke Church, which you can see just up ahead there, and but we're going to go up to the Holy Well, which is of particular interest, and we're going to have a look at it. And there's a bit of a story that goes with this well, which Pamela's going to retell as we walk up to the well. And holy wells are springs, pools, or small bodies of water associated with spiritual beliefs or religious practices. That's the official. That's the official explanation of what a holy well is. So they're thought to have to be protected by guardians, and I have a piece of music called Guardian of the Wells, and they're supposed to be protected by water nymphs, fairies and elementals. And we've got Willow with us today as well, and here's the well.
They lost it, can't you?
You can see how it was lost and then rediscovered.
Yeah.
Now this well, the church is about 15th century, but a lot of these wells predate Christianity, don't they? And in fact, many of them were on pagan sites originally. And so how did it get rediscovered then, Pamela?
Well, there was a vicar who had heard about this well, and he thought he would try to find it. And he came here with his dog. It was the 19th century. Came here with his little dog, who was running free, unlike mine.
And it was a Jack Russell, right?
I think so.
Just
yes.
like Willow.
I think so, yeah. And he was looking for the well, and he couldn't find it. And then the little dog was running up in the hedge, and suddenly disappeared, and then reappeared down the bottom. And that's how they found the well.
Marvellous.
Yeah.
What a lovely story.
And I think this must be fairly relatively modern, because when he found it there was no keystone, and apparently early buildings didn't know about keystones.
They didn't?
No. And so they think that the actual well was built a very, very long time ago.
Myself and Willow and Pamela have got back into the car because we've got quite a downpour here, and so we're going to continue talking a little bit about the well.
Right. Well, they think that because of the nature of the stonework inside the well, that it's probably the oldest building in this parish. There is a keystone on the arch at the entrance to the well, but that's fairly modern.
Okay.
And apparently the rest of it was built, there wasn't an arch for it, and it wasn't, I'm trying to say, there wasn't a key. They didn't know about keystones when they first started building, and the original building for the well had no keystones anywhere. So that's why they think that it is very, very ancient.
Well, I did a little bit of research that I did. Of course, we're in the Celtic world down here in the southwest. Similarly, in Ireland, and they were saying about the Irish wells that there's nearly 3,000 in Ireland, and all of them are pre-Christian, or a large number of them. So we know then that these springs, brooks, water rising from the earth were very, very significant to early peoples of this country, and they realized the importance of water, of course, for practical terms, but also they considered water to be of healing potential.
Yes.
And so many sort of rituals were conducted at these places to try and evoke the healing spirit and healing power of the waters, and many people believe that they were healed from well water, holy well water, and the early Christian church adopted the same view.
Yes, because we don't know when Christianity was brought to this country, but when St. Augustine came to the southeast, there were already Christians in the country, and they were Celtic Christians.
That's right.
And that's why a Celtic cross has the cross of Christ, but there's also a sun around the cross, which, because the Celts worshipped the sun, and they didn't want to remove the sun when they started to worship Christ.
Well, that's an explanation of Celtic crosses I'd not heard before, so that's very interesting.
Oh, right. Well, yes, it's well known, yeah. And that's why that this would have been a Celtic pagan site, and when the Celts became Christians, it would have been taken over by the Christians.
That's right. And so the early Roman Church knew these were places of worship, didn't they? And in pagan times, that is.
Yeah,
and
well, yes, and they
kind of adopted them, didn't they?
Yeah, but they didn't reach this part of the country anyway.
No.
But there wasn't very much Roman influence down here.
Down here.
Apart from Exeter.
Apart from Exeter, yes.
I mean, this here is a very long way away from anywhere.
Well, it's an interesting that it's not far from my birthplace, and which is a place called Crediton, and I'm interested in place names, and I looked up the meaning of the name Shobrooke, because we're in Shobrooke village, and that's Shobrooke Church just through my rather wet windscreen over there, and it comes from two early English words, Succa Brock, and Succa Brock means Goblin Brook. So I think we're still in pagan territory.
Definitely, yes.
And my hometown is Crediton, and Saxon villages were called tuns, and so Crediton is the tun on the the Creedy River, so it became Crediton. By the way, I'm just going to zoom round to show you Pamela's other dog here, which is Chi-Chi, peering out of her carry bag, and we're going to feature Chi-Chi in a future video. Hi, Chi-Chi.
Crediton was the county town at one time, until the River Creedy silted up, and the cathedral was in Crediton,
which we now call the Parrish Church.
Yeah, but they haven't found the foundations. It's very, very early.
Wow.
But there are 12 farms around here which were supported the people in the cathedral.
Folklore. describes holy wells sometimes as gateways to other worlds. And we know when we see wells, sometimes people throw coins into wells. They're looking for blessings, they're looking for healing, they're looking for insight. And as I look a bit closer, it's difficult to see how deep it is. It's got an old wooden door, and it's got this rather lovely iron gate in front of it, but it beautifully built, and as is so much the case with these holy wells, many have been neglected, even vandalised or abandoned. This one's been preserved, and Pamela tells me that at certain times of the year, and often the pagans and the early Christians used to sanctify these wells and to provide a focal point for the saints to be revered and for healing, divination and ritual to take place. And so this is Shobrooke Church Holy Well. So as I head back the lane now, you can see just upon the hill there Shobrooke Church, St Swithuns, which I believe was built in the 15th century. But I'm going to meet Rosemary, who is the warden of the church, who hopefully is going to take me around and give me some more information about this wonderful old church.
When he said when he died, he wanted to be buried where the people who he had served would walk over him regularly. So he wanted to be buried in
on a path
in
of some sort.
Yeah, well, in a gateway, in a church doorway. And subsequent people decided that wasn't a fit place for a bishop to be put. So they made a big tomb for him, dug him up and moved him, and it poured with rain. And it is said that if it rains on St Swithuns Day, which is the 15th of July, it will rain for 40 days. And if it doesn't rain, it will be fine for 40 days. That's the tale about St Swithuns.
That's the tale about St Swithuns.
Yes.
Lovely. Well, I've just walked down the road and arrived at St Swithuns Church, and hopefully I'm going to meet up with Rosemary in a few minutes, who is the warden of St Swithuns, and find out a little bit more about this wonderful church. And while I'm doing that, the rain is cleared, it's brighter, and you can see the wonderful churchyard here and the rolling Devonshire hills beyond. Really quite a beautiful scene today, late morning. It's still and perfectly quiet. Farmland. The thatched house over there might well have belonged to the church. I'm sure Rosemary will be able to enlighten me on that. And I wonder if we have any yew trees which nearly always to be found in graveyards. I'm being invited to look up. Can you see the top? So I'm here with Rosemary this morning. I'm very pleased to meet her, and she's very kindly going to talk to me a little bit about the church, St Swithuns. We've just had a look at the Holy Well, and Rosemary, I'm sure, has got some interesting information to tell us about the church. I believe it was built in around the 15th century. Is that, Rosemary?
Well, they believe there was a Saxon wooden church here originally, and the reason why the experts think that is, can I show you?
Yes.
There's a figurehead here. Where's it gone? There, right up under the light.
Under the light, yes. Okay.
And they think that is probably Saxon.
So that's the way they've been able to date.
They can't obviously swear to it, but
no,
they think it probably is. I've got some notes there of different timing. The tower is definitely Norman, so there was clearly a stone tower here that was a Norman one. But a lot of it is obviously much more modern than that.
More modern than that. So
yeah.
Originally it would have been a wooden structure then,
They
Rosemary?
say if it was Saxon it would have been wooden.
Wooden structure.
And then when the Normans came, then it became obviously more stone. I gather some of the stone
probably were grateful to the Normans that they did that, don't they?
Well,
because the church wouldn't have been here if it was still wood, would it?
Wouldn't. But they think before that there was probably a preaching church here, a preaching cross.
Yes.
And outside we've got a bit of stone that they believe might have been the base. Again, we can't be sure, but we're believing it is part of the base of a preaching cross. So no building.
Do you think the well predates the church?
That is the thinking, that the well would have predated that.
Yeah. So it would have been a gathering place for blessings and taking the waters, and the healing potential waters would have been a focal point then.
I think
at
the
that
water
time
was probably cleaner then.
Yes.
We've had various things floating around in it.
Right.
And I know I attended a house blessing.
Yes.
And there was a sprig of rosemary dipped in the well.
So herbs, they're okay.
So
aren't they?
herbs are okay.
Yeah.
But yes, I'm sure it was a baptismal one because there are two deep steps going down into it.
Are there?
Yes.
Are there steps? So someone could actually go into the top part of the well and be baptised.
That's again what we believe happened.
That's interesting.
And I guess it would have been cleaner then as well. Looking to see. I wrote just a few notes from the history here. About the Saxon, the preaching cross. Oh yes, there's a record saying the church was casually burnt and rebuilt by 1633. What an extraordinary phrase. And in 1840s, what was the original vestry, but is now the green loo outside, was built. The building is now graded 2-star.
2-star, okay.
Yeah, so those were sort of just a few dates.
And you have
Around.
quite a few stained glass windows, don't you?
Yes, they probably are Victorian.
Victorian.
But they are rather beautiful.
They are, aren't they?
Especially when the sun shines,
Of course. Of course, I'd like to get a bit of a closer look at them.
That's a more modern one there. You can see a tractor even by there. 2 families in the village, Burringtons and Lees, I think they are.
They had that.
Of them. Yeah.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful, isn't it?
It is. It's lovely.
It's very much in keeping with the rest of the stained glass in the church.
Yes. And it's very rural, isn't it?
Of course.
Yeah.
Well, we're lucky we've got a bit of light at the moment that we can enjoy these wonderful stained glass windows. Which one would be the oldest, do you think? Or are they all about the same?
I think they're all about the same, apart from a couple of modern, 2 or 3 more modern windows. Oh, I think there might be one in the vestry that they think could have been the oldest.
Okay.
This is a favourite of mine, this one on the left here.
Yes.
Which is a Bethany one.
And depicted in there are...
That's Faith, Hope and Charity.
Faith, Hope and Charity.
It took me a long time to find the words. They are there.
They are there.
Written on various parts
Faith,
of
Hope and Charity.
the window. Because I was looking at it once trying to work out what it represented.
And this one, the main one?
And this one is the Last Supper.
This is the Last Supper. Of course. Let's try. It's spectacular, isn't it? It's absolutely lovely. And you say there's one in the vestry?
Yes, the vestry is this way. If you go through in front of the pews.
I'll follow you.
Yeah. Again, a lot of it is supposition, but it was thought that this one might be the oldest.
Okay.
And this, of course, wasn't originally the vestry, because the vestry was outside.
Outside, okay.
And I guess they got fed up of getting wet in coming from the vestry into the church.
Do you know anything about the symbolism or not?
Not a lot, no. No, I'd be guessing.
Okay, that's fine.
But we found that in the old vestry when we were creating the green loo, the brass, and somebody had put it on the skip, would you believe? And fortunately we saw it there and rescued it.
On a skip.
Yeah. And of course that is there represented
in the window, of course,
yeah. Oh, this says 1857, doesn't it?
1857, yes, it does. So presumably then the windows in the early church wouldn't have been stained glass, they would have been just ordinary glass, would they? Or perhaps the stained glass windows were lost or broken or destroyed during that fire. In the casual fire.
Something obviously happened.
Yeah.
Yes. And I don't know about the wooden churches. I've seen them in Norway, but I haven't seen any wooden churches here.
And this one behind you's got no stained glass at all, so that one's just a plain glass.
No,
yeah.
That was probably just put in. It gives a bit more light, doesn't it? Because the church, sadly, is always quite dark.
Dark, yeah.
From the when the sun shines.
Yeah.
Which it does sometimes, but not always.
And how long have you been looking after the church, Rosemary?
Well, I've been in Shobrooke 51 years.
51 years.
I can't believe that I have. And initially, I looked around everywhere locally to find the perfect church.
I
I think the good Lord has a good sense of humour because I've ended up here. I've been church warden here now for about 14 years.
Really? What do you like about the job, or what's entailed? What are your duties as such?
Well, I asked when I was appointed, I asked what the job description was.
Yes.
And the then vicar, who was great, said there isn't a job description, you'll make of it what you will. I like the pastoral side of things particularly. I've learned a lot. It's hard work, but it's a two-way process. You know, I've gained a lot by getting to know people.
And is the church still reasonably well supported, or?
It's the village. It's very important, the church to the village. I have no doubt about that whatsoever. But Sunday morning congregations are pretty small. But when we have special occasions, we had a short service for the Queen's Platinum Jubilee in the Red Lion.
Yes.
And there were about 60 people there.
Wow. Okay.
We have a harvest.
Should say the Red Lion is the local pub.
It's the local pub in the middle of the village. But for harvest, this whole place is transformed with marquees and stalls and whatever. And the village works its socks off to make that work. And that's our only money raiser, really.
Is it? That's your fundraiser?
That's
once a year?
Yeah. Because obviously there's always something needing doing.
To be done, of course there is.
Always.
Yeah.
And the carol service, there will be probably about 70 people.
Marvellous.
The children like bringing up the crib figures.
Yes, of course.
So I know the church is important, but Sunday morning services aren't. And after lockdown, we opened again with only 2 services a month, whereas we had been having a weekly service. And
do they still bell ring here or not?
Yeah, well,
Does the bells ring?
Haven't. The bell ringing team from Crediton is great, and they come out and they ring bells before our services.
Okay.
And before lockdown again, they were practicing here every week, but they haven't been able to resume that. But only one of the bell ringing team comes from Shobrooke. Okay. The rest are Crediton.
Crediton, okay.
But we are part of...
I should say I was born in Crediton.
Oh, were you?
That's my hometown,
All right, so... Yeah. No, we're part of the Crediton benefice. Okay. With other churches, obviously, yeah.
Any other features around the church that are worth pointing out? There's often any kind of... graves or tombs that are of significance or significant people?
A lot of them are under the carpet.
They're under the carpet.
We had a new carpet.
They've been brushed under the carpet.
A few years ago. 2 of the big tombs in the churchyard are listed buildings, would you believe?
They're listed buildings?
They're listed buildings.
Love it. Love it.
As is the loo, a listed building.
But everybody else would know it's under the carpet.
But everybody else. I mean, there are lots of, obviously, graves in the churchyard.
Yeah. And what's through those doors?
That's the belfry.
That's the belfry. Can I have a quick look through the belfry?
Yeah, if I get the key. Let me, my bag is here. I'll have nothing for you.
We have a children's crash. And the font where baptisms are held.
The kitchen's fairly new, obviously.
I noticed that, yes. Yeah, that must be very useful to have for...
Well, it is, because it brought water into the church, which we hadn't had before. There we go.
Oh. So here we have belfry. And...
the bells are up.
How many bells are there, Rosemary?
6.
6 bells?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. There's a staircase up there, which is pretty dodgy.
I'm sure. I'm sure. Yeah, that goes up to the top of the tower, does it?
Yes, there are various stages going
Yes.
up. I haven't been up there for a while, but the views from the top are great.
Here's all the ropes and things. Wonderful. Thank you for showing me that.
Okay.